social and economic rights, the right to education, the right to health, the right to housing, the right to food. My name is Maria. I am 10 years, just like ISER. Our teacher said the things listed here are basic needs of man, but why do people struggle to get them?
ISER was founded at the beginning of 2012. So at the time, we conducted a mapping of NGOs in Uganda and realized that there was no NGO exclusively focused on social and economic rights advocacy from a holistic perspective. So many organizations at the time dealt with social issues from a humanitarian or development perspective, or had a small project on socio-economic rights within a larger entity looking at civil and political rights. So of course you wouldn't expect efficiency within that arrangement. With very limited resources, we did a lot of desk research to inform our programming and relied on volunteers to put in time and resources. ISER's seed funding came from the Fund for Global Human Rights. As a funder, they bought into the idea of ISER, and we have since walked the journey with them, together with other funders that took an early decision to partner with ISER.
I think it was a worthy investment, and it has been a very productive and very humbling partnership. Knowing that the fund gave the seed funding when ISER didn't have all the requirements that the donor world needs for you to be able to get support, and seeing what the idea has become today, an institution with great systems and structures, doing amazing work that's feeding into research for advocacy around economic and social rights. I think for us it's an honor to have been part of this journey.
The ISER programming has evolved over the years. At its inception, back in 2012, we had only two programs, the right to health and the right to education, although we were engaging in advocacy around other social and economic rights issues. Over the years, and informed by the lessons learned from previous implementation of programs, as well as ongoing contextual analysis, we have progressively introduced other programs. Right now, we run 5 programs. And aside from the right to health and the right to education, we now do have a program on social accountability and community participation. We also have a program on business and human rights, under which we also host the Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability. And then recently, we also introduced the Economic Justice and Social Protection Program. And at all times, we have to ensure that we remain relevant to the context, and that whatever we are doing in terms of programming is serving the constituents that we seek to serve.
ISER acknowledged from the onset that community participation is a critical ingredient for improving accountability for and improving access to social and economic rights.
For the time I've been a community advocate, you know, at least people now are a little bit informed, because they know where to go to report certain issues. I could always work with LOC1, so when you're moving around, even when you're not intending to make any report or whatever, you find someone running to you that, oh, madam, you see, this is what happens, ABC, like that. So I got to realize that they notice that there's someone whom they can talk to, and they feel their issues can be raised.
The community we serve, they could raise issues and address them to us and solve them with support from ISER. People became aware of their rights, health rights and other human rights, but basically health rights. And this improved their risk-seeking behavior, and they knew where to report when they had an issue, whom to contact.
Recognizing that claiming rights demands multiple approaches, ISER works with various stakeholders to meet its objectives, including government ministries, departments, agencies, local governments, human rights institutions, CSOs, networks, international agencies, as well as regional and international human rights mechanisms to achieve its objectives.
We have had a number of dialogue meetings with ISER, guiding us on a few aspects and putting us, by the way, in some cases to task, and whipping the ministry, I would say, because there are so many policy issues we needed to implement and yesterday. But because of one reason or the other, we may not have moved to the expected kind of speed. So ISER is always waking us up and say, please, you were supposed to do this. You have USE, you have UPE, but there are gaps here. So we normally have dialogue, we discuss and agree on how to move forward. ISER, by the way, it doesn't even stop at dialogues. At times it will put you to task. We have had cases where ISER has gone to court, not in bad faith, but to say, ministry, you are not doing your part here. Why don't you do your part? And for us, we find that one positive.
We have enjoyed a cordial working relationship with ISER, especially in the development of National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. I think we delivered that very well. But also on the on economic, social and cultural rights, you know, the convention and other UN standards. We have enjoyed a very good working relationship with ISER.
We've also had very important initiatives where ISER has targeted legislators, and these legislators were turned into champions, and it was demonstrated during the passing of the National Insurance Scheme Bill. Today we had almost consensus in terms of passing the bill, and that credit goes to ISER.
At the national level, ISER has catalyzed social and economic rights advocacy by successfully getting issues like education and health into the national debate.
ISER has been a key stakeholder in that when it comes to research and your report, we work with civil society organizations. And ISER has been very instrumental in inputting and supporting the Commission in its research and also in the preparation of the annual report.
ISER has, in their work, interacted with many marginalized persons out there in the field. They led, not once, a number of marginalized persons to the Commission to hear their complaints and address them.
Together with ISER, we came together with other partners and formed the Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability, which has done quite a lot, including influencing the adoption of the social impact assessment policy from the Ministry of Gender, as well as the recently adopted National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights.
The organization has also had engagements with the judiciary and parliament to improve justiciability and strengthening legal and policy framework for social and economic rights. ISER has also secured a critical mass of civil society organizations and media practitioners willing to cooperate and work together to promote economic and social rights in Uganda.
We've collaborated on the National Conference on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. We were together with ISER. We were the pioneers of the founding partners that started that conference. The first of its kind in Uganda, that is looking at issues of economic, social and cultural rights comprehensively. It has been an excellent collaboration. We've discussed a number of subjects. We've influenced policy, we've influenced law reform. We've inspired people to do advocacy on various matters touching on economic, social and cultural rights. We've also inspired people to do litigation.
Some of the highlights from these engagements have been the improvements in financing for basic education, improvement in gender and equity budgeting by local governments, the national rollout of the Senior Citizens Grant for Social Security, steps taken to regulate private actors engaged in social service delivery, particularly education and health, strengthening corporate accountability through the Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability, and the adoption of the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights.
When school fees went up 3 years ago, and ISER was up in arms and said, look, you cannot let private institutions just charge school fees on their own. You must have a regulation, and as a Minister of Education, you must be able to enforce those particular regulations. That is a debate that had never been talked about because everybody thought education was liberalized and everybody can do whatever they want. So school fees were skyrocketing, children were dropping out of school, but I'm glad as of today, the debate on school fees policy for private institutions, especially the education sector, is on the table of Ministers of Education, and I'm very happy that right now there is an engagement that's going on how we can ensure that we regulate private schools on how they can judge our children.
I want to first of all appreciate and thank ISER for the support they are giving us in developing a policy on private provision of education in this country, so that it's guided. Many times our people are complaining, you know, private schools, they are overcharging, they are doing this, they are doing unprofessional things, they are so it's because maybe there is a lacuna there. Now that we have this policy in formation with the support of ISER, we hope the private provision in this country will be well guided. So we appreciate the contribution done by ISER, and we urge them to keep supporting until when this policy sees the light of the day.
ISER's work with communities, including awareness raising and the Community Advocates Program, has resulted in improvements in social service delivery at the local government level. For example, ISER's research on access to health facilities in Siglo Islands in Namayingo district led to major improvements, including rehabilitating Rabach Health Center, which was infested with bats. The area also got a ferry to facilitate movements from the islands to the mainland, which is a major boost for maternal health, as ISER had documented stories of women dying in labor in the process of accessing health care.
Expectant mothers have been facing a challenge of getting maternity and antenatal care services. Sometimes they get referrals, but they cannot access the mainland for comprehensive services. But due to the intervention of ISER, there has been a provision of a ferry where some disexpected mothers can now move from the island to the mainland for these services.
Social and economic rights advocacy by nature requires that you work at various levels. So our programming structure starts right at the grassroots. We work with communities and engage in advocacy at the district local government level. We also work at the national level, and then we have to also engage in advocacy at the regional African continental level as well as the international levels, because we know that many times the policies that are implemented in country are policies that have been designed from elsewhere. For example, if you look at issues like liberalization, it's an issue that came from institutions like the World Bank and the IMF, and we see that it is a policy that has had significant impact in terms of enjoyment of social and economic rights at our national level. So inevitably, as we do advocacy, we have to make sure that we touch all the actors right from the grassroots, and we have to link the local to the global actors.
Like many institutions, ISER also faces a number of challenges in doing this work. For example, there is a tendency to perceive development and human rights as opposing concepts that cannot coexist in Uganda. The time it takes to realize certain impact or achievements also presents a challenge for advocates like us. We have, for example, seen this with the cases filed before courts of law.
We spent the last 10 years getting citizens to understand that these are entitlements, they're rights, not donations from a politician. We're going to spend the next 10 years growing a movement to demand for public services, to demand for economic social rights. Public services are a collective embodiment of the state's commitment to fulfill economic social rights. They're essential for dignity. A huge part of our work in the next 10 years is to say, how can we take back and reclaim public services, which have been under threat the last couple of years.
ISER would like to acknowledge the support of several funding partners over the years.